After studying this module, you shall be able to know the history, current developments, and need for a sustainable future. Identify the major concerns that need to be looked into for a sustainable future. Evaluate the status of sustainable future in India. Sustainability. Today, an average middle class Indian enjoys facilities unknown to the royalties of the past centuries. Centrally air conditioned houses, fast cars, temperature controlled bath showers, jet travel, and instant connectivity across the globe through World Wide Web. But it is just half the picture. Beyond this life of luxury and ease, shadows of environmental adversity are gathering. In an intergovernmental panel on climate change 2007 report, a consensus statement of expert scientists from 40 countries expressed greater confidence than any of its prior reports that human activity is dangerously warming the planet. In 1950, the earth was weighed down by 2.5 billion people and 50 million cars. Today, population has almost tripled and reached 7.1 billion people, and number of cars have multiplied in dizzying digits and reached a figure of 1.1 billion cars. India's human population and number of cars alone is 1.27 billions, and the number of cars 10 million, and both are steadily increasing. Thus, the severe, most long standing risk that we the world faces today is the imminent danger that human actions are leading to irrevocable, dangerous changes to the environmental settings that sustain life on this planet. If we do not soon overcome this problem, there may be no feasible world left for our future generations to come. This dangerous scenario is a result of steadily rising human population, excessive consumption of all resources, and lack of efforts of ecological conservation. It is implausible to expect this planet to support ever increasing population and their implied consumption. This has got scientists, sociologists, governments, and NGOs reaching and analyzing prospects of sustainability to for human survival. Sustainability comprises not only improved technological competence and agricultural productivity, but also incentives and attitudinal shift that moderate consumption. Social psychology can also play a decisive role in helping change attitudes and behavior. Social scientists have a huge role to play in facilitating our world from escaping ecological catastrophe and lead to a manageable level of bearing on environment which can be conserved forever. Endeavor to aspire for such sustainability will require human race to endure changes in their way of life both culturally and professionally. Howard suggests alterations in people's awareness, attitude, beliefs, and behavior may stimulate changes in their political and economic systems, which in turn might foster the kind of lifestyle changes that could mitigate these ecological problems. Role a psychologist can play in laying out roadmap for individuals and societies could serve as catalyst in creation of a sustainable society. Psychologists with their direct interventions can create an environment of awareness which will enable human race to redefine its current requirements and consumptions and allowing for continuance of future generations. Now, let us look at some of the definitions that help us understand the concept of sustainability. Researchers have defined the concept in several manners, but the underlying key to all the definitions is conservation and mindful conservation. the impact of environmental change on human behavior. Lately, the studies which have been underway for long on global climate change has led to increased acceptance of it happening all around us. Intergovernmental panel on climate change, John Houghton, who served on scientific assessment committee, suggests it to be the greatest problem the world faces. IPCC has presented enough data with support of 11 most developed countries, which has tremendous backing of scientific efforts ever undertaken. And all this establishes warming greenhouse gas blanket is growing, sea and air temperature are rising, various plants and animal species are migrating, polar ice is melting, seas are rising, extreme weather and related disaster losses are increasing. Social psychology has always taken on a subject of human relevance head on, as during civil movements, decades its emphasis on studying stereotyping and prejudices or studying gender development and gender attitude to understand feminist movement. It once again is foraying in realm of environmental changes and its impact on human behavior to analyze the outcomes and possible remedial individual and globally. Psychological consequences of environment change. Human race is at door of disasters caused by environment change, of which many impact subtly to start with. If terrorism and weapon of mass destruction present with overwhelming threat, so does change in environment we live in. Impact of these environment change on human life and behavior will require able assistance from psychological interventions. Psychology will be playing an important role in assisting human to handle these climate consequences. Some of the scenario to illustrate role psychology can play are presented below. Displacement and trauma. According to Antonio Guterres, the UN High Commissioner for Refugees, in 2010, 42 million people were forced by natural disasters to leave their homes, up from 17 million in 2009. More than 90% of these displacements were caused by weather-related hazards, making climate-related displacement the defining challenge of our times. Heat. Serbinin et al. 2011 suggests that if temperatures increase by the expected 2 degree to 4 degree this century, the resulting changes in water availability, agriculture, disaster risk and sea level will necessitate massive resettlement. When drought or flood force people to leave their land, shelter and work, as when sub-Saharan African farming and grazing land become desert, the frequent result is increased poverty and hunger, earlier deaths and loss of cultural identity. When an extreme weather event or climate change disrupts ties to one's place and its people, the frequent result is grief, anxiety and a sense of loss. Climate plays an important role daily in helping is maintain our social interactions and mental makeup, and disturbance in climate beyond a point will affect human race immensely. Water. Sartore et al. Propose that drought appears to contribute to a variety of mental health effects, including more stress, grief, and hopelessness, as well as a sense of solastalgia, which describes a palpable sense of dislocation and loss people feel when they perceive changes to their local environment are perversely harmful. Coelho, Adair, and Musselin found that drought could also result in higher rate of anxiety and emotional distress. Drought scenario have been increasing in recent decades. As pointed out in a study on Indian society, drought brought heightened anxiety and increased stress on people affected by drought-like conditions. Food. Climate change is bound to impact food production, and scarcity of food will have one of the widest impacts on human race. Tanner and Stevenson, 2002. Insufficient nutrition will lead to more developmental and behavioral problems in children as well as lower IQs. Also, inadequate access to food resources would also increase the risk for serious psychological and coping problems. Yu and Hanum, 2007. Chinton and Booth, 2007, warn that the lack of access to sufficient food for good health and mental functioning and water shortages may be traumatizing to people, resulting in more anxiety, post traumatic stress, and depression, as well as more violent toward women. Cataclysmic events. Abbott writes in his book, conflict among people may be one of the hallmarks of climate change's severe weather, which can displace thousands or millions and lead to these people competing with others for scarce resources. Some people may have short term responses to natural calamities like resentment, anxiety, sadness, and hopelessness. But there is an imminent threat of PTSD as a result of major natural disasters like tsunamis, earthquake, etc. Studies indicate that other psychological problems like family dysfunction, difficulties at work, increased child misbehavior, a sense of lost identity, and more may result from experiences of the extreme disasters that climate change is likely to bring. As Fritz, Blasky, Burke, and Weissman propose that emotional distress and anxiety will be among the hallmarks of climate change and its effects, and disadvantaged communities are among those to be most harmed. Climate and conflict. Got war? Blame the climate. Such is often the case, notes Jeffrey Sachs. Many human maladies, from economic downturns to wars, have been traced to climate fluctuations. When climate changes, agriculture often suffers, leading to increased famine, epidemics, and overall misery. Poorer countries with fewer resources are especially vulnerable to climate produced misery. And when miserable, people become more prone to anger with their governments and with each other, leading to war. It is intrinsically important to have stable climate to ensure peace societies around the planet. Sometimes as common as heat acts as catalyst for short-term aggression. It also has an increased number of assaults, rape, robbery and burglary from the possible regions that people are more outside in community. Violence is also more common in hotter seasons of the year, hotter summers, hotter years, hotter cities and hotter regions. Social behavior looks at these impacts and provides for interventions mechanisms. Murder tend to occur more inside homes. Simister and Cooper, 2004, found that violent crime may be exacerbated during heat waves because more stress hormones are released when people are exposed to excessive heat. Bulbena, Sperry and Cunillera, 2006, found that people consumed more alcohol and drugs and more number of people is likely to seek consultations for their psychiatric problems during hotter days. Public opinion about climate change. In year 2010, Anderegg, Prahl, Herald and Schneider surveyed and studied people for their environmental concerns, with 97% of these people agreeing to climate change happening and consider human race responsible for it. As one report in Science explained, almost all climate scientists are of one mind about the threat of global warming. It's real, it's dangerous and the world needs to take action immediately. A similar study by Pew survey in same year carried out in China, India and South Korea found 70% of people agreeable to pay more for energy if it offset environmental change. Yet in 2011, Rosenthal in similar study found only 38% of the people agreeable to such change in the United States. Of course, same percentage of people believed that there is solid evidence of human caused global warming. Pew Research Center 2011. Personal experience and the availability heuristics. Relevance of what is simpler for our minds to visualize also abstracts importance of some distant tragedy. An incident in recent past is simpler to connect with. We tend to evolve thought and make decisions under the influence of this availability heuristics, which may turn out to be a wrong thread. According to Guilford 2011, our ancient brains come designed to attend to the immediate situation, not out of sight data and beyond the horizon dangers. There always is tendency to overlook statistical danger as opposed to something we relate to. Fear of shark attack stays in our mind due to repeated visuals, but impact of 1 degree temperature rise are relatively unknown to our minds, thus hiding the imminent impact of it. One climate skeptic declared a record East Coast blizzard a coup de grace for global warming. Such is the impact of climate on us that on a warmer than usual days, people in United States and Australia appear willing to donate to global warming, which is not the case on a cooler than usual days. Persuasion. In 2011, 39% of Americans believed that most scientists think global warming is happening. More perceived a lot of disagreement among scientists or did not know enough to say. Perceiving uncertainty and reassured by the natural human optimism bias, people discount the threat. People also exhibit a system justification tendency, a tendency to believe in and justify the way things are in their culture. When comfortable, we are not inclined to change the familiar status quo. We tend to like our habitual way of living, of traveling, of eating, and of heating and cooling our spaces. It helps to frame energy saving in attention getting ways. An information sheet or store sign might say, if you do not install CFL light bulbs, you will lose this much of money. Use long time periods instead of saying, this Energy Star refrigerator will save you a certain amount a year on your electricity bill. Say it will save you this much amount in wasted energy bills over the next 20 years. Social psychology and sustainable future. If we are to leave the non-believers in environmental changes, others place their choice in following: increasing technological efficiency and agricultural productivity, moderating consumption and population. Social psychology plays an effective role in moderation of consumption and checking population growth. Social status of countries across the continent is not the same, and there are many countries aspiring to provide better life to their citizens. This could only lead to an increase in consumption. In addition, population refuses to reach a stable level, having overshot Earth's carrying capacity. Bureau of the Census projected in 2013 population grow to reach 9 billion by 2050. With our material appetites continually swelling and knowing that humans care more about their own immediate interest than their descendants' future, questions remain on identifying ways to bring in sustainability. Mayer made few suggestions in an attempt to provide solution to resolve this issue to an extent. Incentives. Nothing works like providing a personal benefit to people. As it is said commonly, we get less of what we tax and more of what we reward. Urban centers around the globe are subsidizing public transport to discourage use of cars. Governments across Europe have established better mass transit system allowing people to use it over their cars. In addition, many European cities do not allow or disincentives car in city centers. Amsterdam is a bicycle heaven. Dozens of German cities have environmental zones where only low CO2 cars may enter. Feedback. What you see often can draw your attention to how you wish to see it. For example, if one's power bill were easily visible to him or her daily, one would be compelled to consider its value against consumption pattern. In Britain, where smart meters are being installed in businesses, Conservative Party leader David Cameron has supported a plan to have them installed in all homes. Smart meters have the power to revolutionize people's relationship with the energy they use, he said to the parliament. In US studies, sticking a smiley or frowning face on homes' energy bills when their energy use is less or more than the neighborhood average has led to energy reduction. Identity. Our identity is not constructed by the people around us alone. Each of our consumption can have an impact on distant, unsuspecting people and or our descendants. Car's engine size should be detriment of our social standing. Instead, it should be tool to move from point A to B. Close, supportive relationships. It is given that a supportive family or friend circle make one feel happier. India long had a tradition of joint families which helped keep people together under one roof, where family members acted as bankers, counselors, juries, and people were closely knit. On hindsight, it also was a more ecologically sustainable system in comparison to several nuclear families now. Positive thinking habits, optimism, self esteem, perceived control, and extraversions also mark happy experiences and happy lives. One analysis of 638 studies of 420,000 plus people in 63 countries found that a sense of autonomy, feeling free and independent, consistently influences people's sense of well being more than does wealth. Experiencing nature. Carleton University students randomly assigned to a 17-minute nature walk near their campus ended up much happier than students who took a similar length walk through campus walking tunnels. Japanese researchers report that forest bathing, walk in wood also help lower stress hormone and blood pressure. We in India, in the name of modernization, have moved away from our culture of natural existence. Maybe it is time to revisit it for survival. Flow. Individuals' involvement at work and in leisure of choice makes them happier. Mihaly notes that between the anxiety of being overwhelmed and stressed and the apathy of being overwhelmed and bored, there lies a zone in which people experience flow. Flow is an optimal state in which, absorbed in an activity, we lose consciousness of self and time. In fact, the less expensive a leisure activity, the happier people are while doing it. To summarize, we are moving each day closer to the possibilities of natural disaster, freak weather conditions, season changes occurring at frightfully high frequency, all in quest for increasing our consumption. Consumption is also increasing owing to population rise well above Earth's carrying capacity, leading to global environmental crisis. Psychology as a discipline, especially social psychology, needs to look into ways through which a sustainable future can be envisioned and propagated. There are several approaches used in the discipline which can help us understand human behavior vis a vis environment better and also suggest measures to curb the growing menace. There are several psychological consequences of environmental change which are threatening in proportions. Studies suggest that lack of conservation can have multidimensional ill effect on the society. Social psychology can use its various constructs to encourage people to act in more sustainable behaviors. Psychology will have to take an interdisciplinary approach to assist and enable individuals and societies for sustainable environment.
Sustainability comprises not only of improved technological competence and agricultural productivity, but also incentives and attitudinal shifts that moderate consumption. Social psychology can also play a decisive role in helping change attitudes and behavior. Social scientists have a huge role to play in facilitating our world from escaping ecological catastrophe and lead to a manageable level of bearing on the environment, which can be conserved forever. Endeavor to aspire for such sustainability will require human race to endure changes in their way of life, both culturally and professionally. Howard in 2000 suggested alterations in people's awareness, attitudes, beliefs, and behaviors that may stimulate changes in their political and economic systems, which in turn might foster the kind of lifestyle changes that could mitigate these ecological problems. For past half a century, there has been an ever-growing recognition of the impact human race is inflicting on the environment of this planet. The cognizance, albeit slow at start, has increasingly drawn attention of people at large. It has affected societies in a way where the quest to decrease one's adverse impact on environment is no more an isolated idea. This has also pushed researchers and scientists to investigate for ways by which societies can assist in reducing adverse impact. Psychologists have proposed few approaches to assist in the process of analyzing environment alongside human behavior. Various prepositions can be clubbed in four such models. Rational economic model requires enhancement in financial benefits of employing an environmentally friendly process for people to be interested. Shift from incandescent bulbs to LEDs has actually been made based on the above principle. Gonzalez et al. In 1988 had suggested that the deficiency in strictly rational economic model stems from the fact that individuals will often require a persuasive communication in order for them to respond to changes in economic parameters. That is, not only does one need to make conservation a more economically viable act, but one must also persuade individuals that these economic benefits exist and that they warrant changes in behavior. Thus, the campaigns to promote acceptance of an environmentally good product must employ an enhanced language and visual to involve audience emotionally as well. Social dilemma model establishes means for psychologists to study individual characteristics, social group, community size, mutual trust, and a status of resource for community and such behavioral patterns to understand people's behavior when looking at a social dilemma. As such, it has been argued that results from the social dilemma laboratory present a set of knowledge that has the potential to be applied to the real life problems of attempting to promote ESB in communities throughout the world. Attitude model would be the most common model to analyze, investigate, and advise on ESP. This model works on identifying the attitudes of individuals, which will make them pro sustainability and promotes such attitudes for environmental gains. It tries to evaluate circumstances in which such attitude takes shape and proliferate. This model seems to have a few theoretical parallels to the social dilemma approach. Both try to look into the impact of aspects of individuals and conditions in which they are operating. Behavioral model takes from behavioral analysis proposed by Dyer et al. In 1993. It lays emphasis on the analysis of the direct antecedents and consequences of behavior. The contribution of a behavioral approach in the applied intervention context lies in the identification of ways in which ESB can be modified by providing antecedents, such as information leaflets, prompts, or modeling, and by restructuring consequences, such as thorough feedback or monetary and social reinforcement. Pollution is the contamination of water bodies, for example, lakes, rivers, oceans, and groundwater. Whereas water pollution occurs when pollutants are directly or indirectly discharged into water bodies without adequate treatment to remove harmful compounds. Noise pollution is a disturbing or excessive noise that may harm the activity or balance of human or animal life. The source of most outdoor noise worldwide is mainly caused by machines, transportation systems, motor vehicles, aircrafts, and trains. Air pollution is the introduction of particulates, biological molecules, or other harmful materials into the Earth's atmosphere, possibly causing disease, death to humans, damage to other living organisms, food crops, or built environment. Lately, the studies which have been underway for long on global climate change has led to increased acceptance of it happening all around us. In 2011, John Houghton of Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, who served on Scientific Assessment Committee, suggests it to be the greatest problem the world faces. IPCC has presented enough data to prove the same with support of 11 most developed countries, which has tremendous backing of scientific effort ever undertaken. Human race is our door of disasters caused by environmental changes, of which many impact subtly to start with. If terrorism and weapons of mass destruction are present with overwhelming threat, then so does the changes in the environment we live in. Impact of these environmental changes on human life and behavior will require able assistance from psychological interventions. Psychology can play an important role in assisting humans to handle these climate consequences. Social status of countries across the continents is not the same, and there are many countries aspiring to provide better life to their citizens. This could only lead to an increase in consumption. In addition, population refuses to reach a stable level, having overshot Earth's carrying capacity already. Bureau of the Census projected in 2013 that population growth to reach 9 billion by 2050. With our material appetites continually swelling and knowing that humans care more about their own immediate interest than their descendants' future, question remains on identifying ways to bring in sustainability. Myers in 2011 made few suggestions in an attempt to provide solutions to resolve this issue to an extent. Ming-Kyung Koo and her colleagues in 2008 invited people to write about how they might feel if they have never met their romantic partners. Compared to others who wrote about meeting their partners, those who imagined not having the relationship expressed more satisfaction with it. With exposing people to such studies and surveys, social psychology can assist in improving individuals' consumption. King of Bhutan, J.S. Wangchuk, famously said, gross national happiness is more important than gross national product. Sender Tideman in 2004 explained gross national happiness is aiming to promote real progress and sustainability by measuring the quality of life rather than the mere sum of production and consumption. Things which truly and simply makes us happier are also the ones which involve least consumption. To summarize, we are moving each day closer to the possibilities of natural disaster. Freak weather conditions, season changes occurring at frightfully high frequency, all due to our quest for increasing consumption. Consumption is also increasing owing to population rise well above Earth's carrying capacity, leading to global environmental crisis. There are several psychological consequences of environmental change which are threatening in proportion. Psychology will have to take an interdisciplinary approach to assist and enable individuals and societies for sustainable environment.